Uh, so welcome again to A to Z of Project Manager for Management for Engineers and Managers. So this is an 8 PDH program, and in front of you on the screen you see a list of topics that we're going to cover today. And at the very top you see project objective, scope, basic assumptions, and goal setting. Very, very important topic. This is, like when you get ready to construct a building, foundations are the most important thing. So is the case here. These are the foundations. So this first bullet you see, establishing the project objective, getting an agreed upon scope of work, putting in black and white, and getting everybody's formal agreement on it. Setting up what are called basic assumptions, and I'll explain what they are, and then goal setting. Goals are what support the objective, the mission, the scope, and all that. All of that pretty much then puts you on the right path. Everything is documented so that nobody can point fingers and play the blame game later on. Say, hey, well, that's not what we wanted. We thought the building was going to look like this or that, or it's going to be this size or that, or the doors were going to be in this on this side or the other side. Things like that. So all of that is clarified at the very outset before you break ground. That's the whole idea. So there's everybody's on board. So we'll get deeper into that. So then we'll talk about project life cycle cost and basic financial analysis associated with projects. So by the way, this particular topic, while people who handle smaller projects can benefit from it substantially, you'll see that as the project flows, it's designed. These topics and the information you'll pick up from here is not only applicable to small projects, but you'll see that it applies very well and fits perfectly with large projects. When I say large projects, I mean projects over $1 million or more. So that's where financial analysis come in, and when you do a project, whether it's building a new building, Jim, in your case that would be a new hangar for aircraft, expansion of your airport or whatnot, and in some other cases it could be a manufacturing facility, new addition to a manufacturing facility. That could be maybe an automotive assembly plant that is being expanded because of increased business or whatnot. So bottom line, whenever you take on a project with a specific endpoint and mission and objective in mind, you want to make sure that you capture the entire cost of the project, not just the initial cost. That's where the life cycle cost comes in, and you'll see the emphasis on how a life cycle cost is so different than and so much more inclusive than just the initial cost, the initial price tag of a piece of machine. And then we'll get into project screening and vetting. So when you handed a project to do, where do you begin? Do you just take it at face value and just start implementing whatever is written on that piece of document? Or should you, scrutinize it, meaning not necessarily being negatively critical or anything like that, but that's in many cases project managers. It's expected of them to screen and vet the objective and basic assumptions and the money that is allocated to them and the scope that has been given to them, if they're not involved in the original scope and objective development. When I did large projects during my corporate career, there were some cases where I was given the objective, I was given the scope, I was given the basic assumptions and goals, and I was told to just implement it. And so that is where this bullet comes in. Did I just take the objective and just start implementing it? Well, I could have, but I basically, gleaned through the objective and scope and compared it to the funds allowed and looked at the technical feasibility of things and see if it made sense and so forth. And then, I would go back to the person, my boss or whoever assigned me to the project, and say, hey, I've looked through the scope, I've looked through the objective, and I've looked at the money, and I've looked at the time schedule and whatnot, and I've also looked at the safety goals and whatever, that you're going to be measured, your performance as a project manager is going to be measured by. And I see that, here are the points of clarification that we need. We need to change this or change that, or I need clarification here or clarification that, and then document it. And that's part of screening and vetting, and we'll take that up a little more detail later on. Then, how do you organize a team? Who's going to be on your team? If you're the project manager, obviously you're not going to do it all by yourself. So, in other words, you're going to have a construction project manager on the construction. Your counterpart on the construction side, meaning the company that's doing the construction, they have a lead person, the person who's over the whole project. Well, that'll be your counterpart on the other side of the fence. And what is their organization? So, but as you develop your own team, and if it's regardless of whether it's a small team, large team, whatever, that person, the construction project manager, has a dotted line reporting to you, or you could even say it's a solid line reporting to you, because you are the customer, and they're providing the services to you. So bottom line, if you have a safety person on your team, you need to put it on your organization chart. If you have a technician helping you, or 2 or 3, or if you have engineers working under you, all those technical folks could be part of your project team, and you would develop a little organization chart. And when I did large projects, and once I was given the purse strings and control of the purse strings, and I was given the objective or whatnot, regardless, once I got started, one of the first things I did was basically make up my team. If I needed certain types of engineers on the team, civil engineer, mechanical engineer, chemical, electrical, whoever, I would basically put them on the organization chart. If I needed some technicians, I would put them on the organization chart. If I needed a safety person, I'd put them on the organization chart. If I needed a construction supervisor or construction overseer on representing the principal's interest, meaning the owner's interest, meaning the corporation's interest, then I would put them on the team. And once you set up your little team, whether it's small or large, whatever, of course you get it approved, so that you can indeed get those people assigned to your team. And then you also set up a protocol for communications and transactions. And when you have a very small team, this may not be as much of a challenge. But when you have larger teams, it's very important that everybody kind of knows the parameters associated with proper communications, transactions, and protocols. Meaning when something, some kind of an incident happens, who's going to be what's going to be the chain of command, and who's going to call who. If you're not on the premises at the time, if a technical decision has to be made, if it's a 24/7 project. Most of the projects I've done were 24/7, round the clock, spanning anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and some were longer. We basically set up a protocol and chain of communication. So, after my 8 to 5 shift as a project manager, when I went back home or to a hotel or whatever, if it was an overseas or out of town project, they still had my cell phone, and they knew, that crew that was working all night. They knew, who's the person in lead, technical lead from engineering point of view, that represented my interest as a project manager. And so they would call them first, and if they're not available, they knew how to reach me, that type of thing. That's just an example of protocol of communication, so we'll talk about that a little more. And then phased implementation of long multi-segmented projects. That basically has to do with those projects that are, not just one contiguous, implemented in one contiguous segment. These could be large projects, like there's a nuclear power generating plant project in South Carolina that is no longer functional. The project I think got disbanded, but when it was, I've used that in the as an example before, because it's an example of a very large. It was a billion dollar, like with B, project, and there were 3 nuclear reactors, and each one was a couple of billion apiece. And so when the contractors got on site, they were going to stay there for all 3 segments, but because the projects were so lofty, each one of those 2 billion segments, $2 billion reactor segments would span over a year and a half or so. They basically broke the overall project into 3 segments and set up teams that would be there for each segment. And so when there were certain parts to the project that were taking place in parallel, you knew how that would be, who would be doing what, and keep things that are on critical path, on schedule and so forth. So this next bullet is development of functional specifications of the system or process. Again, if you're just constructing a building, they may you would think that there are not much in terms of functional specs, but if you are going to put special equipment on it, that could be controls of some sort, and if you have machinery that's going to have automated controls on it, or whatever, and machinery is being designed by someone, some external entity. Well, how's the machine going to function to meet your needs? Well, that needs to be documented, and that's where functional specs come in. And then project management tools. There are multiple project management tools out there, including Microsoft management project management tool. That basically what they do is what I showed you on the very first slide, the title slide, where you saw the Gantt chart. That would be an example of what one of the functions those tools have to help you develop Gantt charts. They help you control inventory, help you track the mobilization of equipment and labor and so forth. So those are project management tools. We don't really dwell on those very much because that's pretty much a CAN type of training that you can get whoever's project management tool you buy. An hour or 2 of that training, online or whatever, basically gets you, rolling. So, but anyway, these project management tools help you develop project schedules. They help you map the project and how it's flowing. Basically, pinpoint